Hello, everybody. Welcome to Interview Friday on Lunch Therapy. So good to be here. Today we have a special guest, the inventor of the jetpack. Yes, Nelson Tyler, the original jetpack inventor. We're going to get this inside scoop on jetpacks and where are they? What's the status? We're going to meet this wonderful guy. And let's get into it. It's Lunch Therapy. Okay, Lunch Therapy. If you haven't been to Lunch Therapy before, welcome. This is a place where we set aside all the horrible things that are going on in the world. We can definitely go back to them after this, but for now we're just going to do a little bit of breathing, investigate some fun things, and just have a good time. Today is no exception. We have Interview Friday with Nelson Tyler, who is a delight, and I think you'll find that he's something else. So before we do anything on this show, we breathe. And that is the single most important thing to do. You gotta breathe, right? And I see Jose Salas is here, humming away. I'm sure he knows about jetpacks. Pam Palmieri, she needs a jetpack for sure. Pam is already a pilot, already parachutes. I believe she's a yoga instructor. I don't know, she does all kinds of things, but she's fearless. If anybody should fly a jetpack, it's Pam. All right, in through the nose, out through the toes. This means everybody has to breathe. Hold it. And let it go. Part of our objective here is to clear the mind, relax, enjoy life a little bit. Behind me is this incredible Kyler Boone background. Nomadic ambiance, they're called on YouTube. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. There's some people working around back there. One more, in through the nose, out through the toes. Holding it. Let it go. Shake it out. All right, moving along. There's some lovely music for you and some trees. We're gonna take a moment here and just watch some fun stuff. I think we need it. Here's Ben McKnight's. Ben McKnight, so good to see you. Hoy. So I wanted to show you the Oregon Zoo has a I don't know, a feature, I guess, where they take the goats and they introduce them to other animals. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's on the YouTube channel, Oregon Zoo. Let's take a look. So here they are. That's Ruth. So what they do is they take these goats around. I guess goats are really friendly. I don't know. But yeah, so they're gonna go see some lemurs today. Let's see if I can get ahead here. So a lemur, as you know from the film Madagascar and many other things, are super cute. I don't know if they're friendly or not. Let's see what she says.
Different vocalizations that they use to communicate. So really hoping we're gonna hear some.
That's the sound that a lemur makes. If anybody was wondering, what does the lemur say? That's what he says. or she, I'm not sure.
In the world, and that's the
Let's
island
get it
of
together here
Madagascar. That's why
to where the goats
this guy's
meet the
trying to
lemurs.
peek around the keeper that's in there.
So they look through the glass first, and they're like, "Hey, what is that?" Just like you would at the zoo. But then they get in there.
When these lemurs see you, you guys better look up high. Oh,
I don't know about you,
the
but I
top-
love lemurs.
The ring-tailed lemurs were especially vocal, so they kind of like shot up to the top and they were like, listen to the calls. I picked a little Ruth.
Just when we
up
get
so
to the
she
place
can-
where Ruth,
yeah,
the goat, meets the
place to
lemur.
explore.
I don't think they're gonna hug or
Was
anything.
that one of the females actually hung out and stayed near us the whole time, and that's a good thing to see. They're a matriarchal society,
what people
so
have
if
to say.
she's calm, then that kind of gives
Goats.
the rest
Yeah,
of the truth.
gotta
or
love the goats.
conspiracy.
Kamala
Like a
says her
good
mom
positive
looks
vibe.
like a lemur. Very wise. They're very wise-looking animals. Maybe it's those big eyes.
Both the goats and the
They just look
lemurs
like they're
really
taking
gotta
it all in.
Experience something
cool.
new, not just seeing each other, but
All right,
hearing
so
and interacting
let's move
with
on.
environments.
It's tough to
And,
leave,
little Ruth
but
here's
we got to get to the next
really
thing.
tired herself out.
And the next thing is, let's see. Oh yeah. So now we're gonna get a little bit more adventurous because we have to rack it up a little bit, ratchet it up, I think is what I'm trying to say, because we're gonna be getting on some jetpacks. Lemurs are a matriarchal society. Facts that we learn here on Lunch Therapy. Yeah, you gotta love the lemurs. And this is a roller coaster, the Cheetah Hunt, dynamic at Busch Gardens, Tampa. You know, we're gonna be talking to a thrill seeker today, so we gotta get ourselves a little bit of thrills before we go in to talk to the thrill seeker. I like this part. Whoa, you know, they're using a special camera mount that keeps the camera straight. And it's funny because we happen to be talking to someone who's like an inventor of camera mounts as well. So there's the tie-in there, besides the fact that I just like to watch these videos where you ride roller coasters, especially these days, you know, 'cause you can't really get out. All right, so let's go to the next one. Let's see, it is another roller coaster experience because that's, you know, what we do here a lot of times. This is the Cannibal elevator lift coaster. Let's see what happens. I've never even seen this one. I think I maybe skipped ahead, missed the one that I was going to show you, but now we're going to do this one. We got to get to this is scary. I'm scared. Let's see what Greg says about lemurs while we're doing this. Right, lemurs freak me out. When you see them at the zoo, they stare at you like they know something you don't. Arrogant bastards. Yeah, I feel that way. Sometimes I feel that way about cult members too, as they look at you like they know something that you don't. And that's in the cult of the hummingbird. We don't look at you like that though. We just look at you like, I don't know what's going on either. This is a crazy thing. I can't really guarantee that this is going to be not scary because I have never seen this video before. Did you know a group of cheetahs is known as a cohort? And it's only comprised of sibling males. Tell me, though, what a group of lemurs is called, because I think it's a really interesting name. Wow. So if anybody, Greg, somebody can tell me what a group of lemurs is called, that would be cool. This is a great one. I really like this one. All right, I got to move on because we have this wonderful interview coming up, if I do say so, on behalf of Nelson Tyler. All right, let's get into this thing. Comment, chat among themselves. I'm going to be putting them on the screen. Let's find out about jetpacks with the incredible Nelson Tyler. I know Pam's psyched up. A conspiracy. Exactly, Greg. A group of lemurs is called a conspiracy. All right, so a few weeks ago, it was all jacked up and talking to Tom Kearney, and we were talking about jetpacks and things like that, and we were like, what the hell happened to jetpacks? And I really wanted to get down to it. Did an episode earlier this week about jetpacks, and then I was able to meet the Rocketeer himself. And now you're going to meet him as well. Some people say the word GOAT, which is short for greatest of all time. Definitely the greatest rocketeer of all time. And here he is, Nelson Tyler. I'm lucky enough to be here with Nelson Tyler, the inventor of the personal jet belt, someone who has been working on jetpacks his entire life. We have been wanting these since the 60s, since I was a kid. And so now we're going to find out the origin story and how these things came about and where we stand on jetpacks from the expert himself. Thank you for being here, Nelson. It's so great to see you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right. So next to you, is that the current version of a jetpack?
Current state-of-the-art jetpack, which are called JP-10. There's 10 variations leading up to this. First of all, there's a 12-engine one with little models. Didn't work at all. Couldn't keep them all running. Then there was an 8-engine version. Then there was a 6-engine, and none of these would work. Then finally an engine became available from a place in Europe that we specified what we needed, which is this little guy here. And it's strong enough to lift, just have 2 of them. So now it's like you see, your whole life, like clear back in the 30s.
Yeah. Now, is that Buck Rogers?
No, this isn't. This was before that.
Before Buck Rogers.
And then there was this here, which was in the 30s also.
Wow.
And then finally, Buck Rogers. All of them have 2 little jets on the side. This is another version of Buck Rogers and his girlfriend. I'll tell you the story leading up to this.
Okay.
And then there's, back in the 40s, there's the King of the Rocket Men, a 12-part serial where all the actors, bad guys, good guys, fight end over end on tables, things. Their hats never come off.
Their hats stay on.
Ties on. It's great. Eventually, Disney did The Rocketeer.
Yes.
I am the Rocketeer.
You are the Rocketeer, exactly.
So I'll stop for a second, see how it got started. When I was about 12 years old, in the backseat of my dad's Packard, we leave Disney studio where he was the head of the camera department. He was running the camera department, and there was 2 departments over there, animation and camera. And he was there during Snow White, Disney, Dumbo, Pinocchio, Fantasia, all that. And then during training films during the war. Anyway, I'm in the back of this Packard listening to the radio, and Buck Rogers comes on. And Buck and his girlfriend are looking out of their spaceship at a planet. And so they decide to go down this planet. They both have put on their jetpacks and zoom down. This is on the radio, so, it gets in your head, whatever.
Yeah. And your imagination is even better than any movie.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember they go down and land on this planet like in a big field, like a belt. And then all of a sudden the field starts opening up like it's going to eat them. So they escape on their jetpacks. I think I was about 9 or 10. And I decided I have to have a jetpack someday like that. So then as things moved on, I got into studio work because of my father. That's the way I was then. And eventually I invented the first helicopter camera mount that held the camera stable enough so you could see the image smoothly. You go back and look at the old 50s sci-fi movies, they always have a helicopter, like a them, with the big ants. And things.
Yeah, them. Mm-hmm.
So I worked on that. I got the idea, and I thought it'd take a couple of months. It actually took 2 years, and I thought I'd be able to fly in a helicopter occasionally. So I finished it after about 2 years, shot a little demo reel. I knew guys at BBD&O, the ad agency, from working on commercials, at a little studio where I worked. And I made a little demo reel, and they sent it all over, and I never worked on the stage again. I was just doing 2 or 3, 4 jobs a week all over the world with my cameraman.
Wow.
And I had 10 cameramen. I could fly to Florida to do a job, but I couldn't get the camera mount to Dallas for the next morning if there was another commercial or something. So I made a second camera mount so I could move them around ahead of me. Eventually, another camera guy begged me to let him use it, and I did. And then a couple of weeks later, the check came in the mail, and I was looking at it, trying to figure it out. And I thought, wait a minute, I wasn't even there to get a check.
Great.
So I started making more cameras. The reason I'm telling you this, it became very successful, and I wound up with 4 buildings full of any kind of machine, CNC stuff, welding shop, bending, so I could just about build anything.
Yeah.
So back to building a rocket belt in the late 60s. I started building it, and turned in quite a project. There's one hanging on the wall. You can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned how to fly it here with big stuff. We worked in the parking lot, still there, with tethers and things and stuff. The problem with it is that a rocket is a rocket. It doesn't use oxygen from the air, so it has to do it itself. And when I say a hydrogen peroxide rocket, it's 90%, not 2% like in a drugstore.
So it is hydrogen peroxide that's the fuel.
Yeah.
But it's a really heavy-duty hydrogen peroxide.
80%. It's such an oxidizer. If you spill it on your arm or anything organic, it just sets it on fire. Green grass in the park, it spills, it starts it on fire.
Wow.
So you don't need oxygen for it. It has its own oxygen. What you do is you pump it over a catalyst pack, normally silver-plated screens, and it decomposes into steam. And each molecule expands about 5,000 times. So a rocket bell, like you used to see, it just makes steam. And supersonic steam, very loud. Runs for about 22, 25 seconds,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it costs about $900 per 20 seconds of fuel.
Wow.
So, but eventually, here's a picture of it. I don't know if you can see it here.
I see it. Now, I had a video of you, I believe it's you, trying out the jetpack when it first started. Here you are. Is this you testing a rocket belt right here? I don't know if you can see it.
That's exactly me testing my first rocket belt, probably about 1969, in the parking lot of Tyler Camera Systems. And it took 2 people, one to save me from falling and one to pull a little trolley along above me. So it was quite a deal. So 20 seconds of practice and then back to refueling.
Wow.
People are going to do that or afford to do it, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I learned how to fly it.
Yeah.
Here I am, first flight 1970 out of Van Nuys Airport with a helicopter company.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How high were you there off the ground?
30 feet or so.
30 feet. And did it seem like this was going to be something that was super dangerous? Like, were you scared?
At that age, nothing can happen to you.
Right. You're invincible, I guess.
28, 30, just, you're bulletproof.
Wow.
Eventually, I did a Canadian club. I didn't even drink, but I did a Canadian club ad up in the Rockies, flying up into a parking lot so they could shoot it and look like I'm way up in the mountains.
Wow.
I did 4 flights there. This was in 1971, and it was on the back page of the last full-size Life magazine.
Wow. Is that now? So you were flying these things yourself. I know there was Bill Suter as well who was flying them. Were you both flying them equally, or?
Yeah, and then a little bit after that, we were going back and forth. And then 1984 brought Bill out here to fly and do the Olympic opening. That's him.
I have a video of that as well. Let's see if I can put that on the screen.
Okay, there's a good story about that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about it. There he is, landing. He's flying over people, too, which I find really interesting. He lands on that little pad. Oh, there he goes. All right, yeah, tell me about it.
The power you get out of it is determined by the pressure you push the peroxide through the catalyst pack.
Yeah.
We have 6,000 pounds of nitrogen in the tank. It goes through a pressure regulator, brings it down to 600 pounds to pump the peroxide through the catalyst pack and into the nozzles.
Yeah.
Well, when the last time I saw Bill, he weighed about 185 pounds. He showed up, he was 205 pounds.
Oh, no.
The fly is just going to sit there going, yeah, yeah, yeah. So that picture, I took that picture, by the way, in my still picture. I was afraid he wasn't going to fly, and we only got the 2 billion people watching it.
Yeah.
So I'm adjusting the little pressure regulator, and it went up higher than I ever set it. I set it. I said, okay. And he launched. So and the weird thing is, you ask somebody that saw that, how do you think that rocket belt flew? Most of them would say, a minute, 2 minutes, 14 seconds.
14 seconds.
14 seconds.
Wow.
And the reason is the peroxide is so heavy, it's twice as heavy as gasoline.
Yeah.
The turbine fuel is 11 pounds per gallon. You can hardly pick up it. It's 55 pounds for a little 5-gallon thing.
Huh.
When you burn it off, you have 55 pounds more thrust, basically, because you've lost that much weight. So it would get down to the point he'd have so much power, even when he's burned that he would have to actually turn the thing off to be able to come down. So he went really fast and still have about 25 pounds of fuel in the tank. And so it was a 14-second flight. And that was very famous. 2 billion people saw it.
Oh, everybody saw that back then.
3 weeks later, Mr. Honda showed up in my parking lot. That's Tyler Camera Systems. I wanted to try on the jetpack, rocket belt.
Yeah.
Had 3 limousines filled with people doing a lot of bowing,
Yeah. He came from Japan?
Yeah. Mr. Honda. The Honda. Yeah. I love his white socks.
Yeah, that's so great. So were they thinking maybe they were going to market the jetpack at that time?
Yeah. Everybody thought, wow, jetpack, you put it on your back and you fly.
Yeah, right.
Just like in the serials or in the comic books.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it was a pretty famous thing then. We're getting a lot of interest in a company from Europe called Tivoli Gardens, which is a Disneyland, Sweden or Denmark or something.
Denmark, yeah.
And they bought it
Wow.
for $250,000, $250,000, which in the 80s was a lot of money.
Yeah, it's still a lot of money.
I was anxious to sell it because I was getting this 90% peroxide out of a company in Canada, rocket fuel. It says on the big canister, propellant peroxide. They stopped making that because that was used for the little steering rockets on missiles.
Oh.
Not the Swift rocket, but the little things you see shooting out the side.
Yeah.
So I sold it to Tivoli Gardens. They brought their best motorcycle rider out, world champion, and we tried to train him on our tether. And on the tether, I saw him fly past the window like super.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he
no.
just couldn't learn how to do it. He was just too full on,
Yeah.
So they hired then a guy named Kenny Gibson, who died recently with brain something or other, and who I had trained to be replacement of Bill or me, and Kenny Gibson was flying. So they hired Kenny to go over to Tivoli Gardens and fly for them for a while. I'm leading up to a nice little story here.
Okay.
They got tired of it. Kenny licensed it back. He lived in Texas, and he was Chuck Norris' stunt double. So Kenny's going to make money. And he starts making pretty good money. He has 3 helpers with him. I won't name names. But they thought, well, this is great, too. So without Kenny knowing it, over a year's time, they copied every part and piece of my belt.
Oh, wow.
And when they finally got it ready to fly, they got in an argument, and one guy killed one of the guys.
What?
The other guy grabbed that guy, put him in a box for 2 weeks because he had taken the rocket belt, and hidden it. And that guy escaped, got out, called the police. So the guy that put him in is still in jail. for killing the other guy, and that belt is still hidden somewhere, and the one guy that's out can't reveal where it is, and they'll know he's already guilty too.
They don't even know where that is still?
And that's a true story, guys.
It's a real story.
Anyway, yeah.
Wow.
And so I wipe my hands clean of rocket belts and peroxide, you know, and I started building these little things. I learned of a guy in England.
His name at Cambridge that was building his own engine, so I flew over there.
Now, was this, when was this?
And that was, this was about probably 12 years ago now.
12 years ago. Now, was this after David Mayman got involved?
No, leading up to that.
Oh, we're leading up to that. Yeah, okay.
This guy, Paul Ford, Dr. Paul Ford at Cambridge, and was building this engine that he was going to try to sell. And it was very similar in size to this. And I heard about this, went over there, which was fun. You know, Liz arranged all the flights and tickets and a limo guy, and I got in a limo, and the guy is driving it out to Cambridge. He never turned around. He's just going like mad. And I said, boy, I love England because of Benny Hill. You know, Benny Hill?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He turns around and goes,
Benny Hill's my hero, you know, and then we're going, watch where you're going.
anyway, I met with Paul. The engine seemed the right size and all that. I bought one, brought it back here, started testing it. It's a little iffy.
Yeah.
And about then, David, he was fairly wealthy at that point.
Yeah.
And he had wanted to fly jetpacks always. And he had heard of Paul Ford. And he went there. And Paul Ford said, well, you better talk to this guy, Nelson Tyler, in California. So he called me from there. And about every 3 or 4 weeks, somebody would call me. I've got a great invention. I want to do this. I want a rocket belt.
Of course.
You know, yeah. So he calls and he says, I said, oh, so you want me to build one? No, I want to help you and I want to fly it and all that. And I said, then, okay, well, come on over. Okay, I'll be there tomorrow.
Wow. And he, I've got a picture of you both. He had a real, like, strong desire to fly one of these things. That was his main thing to, you know, I mean, like a really strong desire. You know, in the movie, it's almost like a life mission. Maybe it's, and probably the same for you, like a life mission to get one of these jetpacks and fly around and successfully do it.
So he really wanted to, and he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
You know, and fairly wealthy then, had his own jet, had his own A-Star helicopter. And he came over and we headed off. And he wanted to be the money guy, you know, and he put, I won't say how many millions, but it was a lot of money into this over about 8 or 10 years. That's when we built the 8 engine and the 6 engine, the 4 engine, and finally this other.
And it was really, I mean, there's a movie about it as well called Own the Sky. And you're in it and David's in it. And it seemed like it was not going to happen, you know, because you were just working on it. And he even he was getting a little bit, it seems like he was getting a little pushy after a while to the point where he was trying to fly this thing when maybe it wasn't ready. You guys were out in that park. And then he just bit it, ended up in the hospital, burnt his leg. And then that incident where he's over the water and goes into the water. What were you thinking at this point? Were you like, I don't know, this guy's out of control. What the heck's going on? Or were you like, let's keep pushing the envelope. We're going to get there.
I knew he'd get it eventually.
Yeah.
When you're that enthusiastic and fearless, which he is, I kept telling him, before you come down, you slow down. Slowing down is so you pull up on the handle so the jets are facing forward and slow down, come to a stop, and then go down. And he just never would take the time, you know. When you're talking about it, was in the rocket build.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't build him the rocket build. I said, no, I'm done with rocket build. So he had this guy he found in Mexico called Juan something, and he's building the rocket build.
Oh, yeah. That's part of this thing. It gets really scary down there with those rockets. And
so finally I redid it to where he could fly it. And that's when I was telling you, you've got to come to a stop, come down. And that's when you saw he committed to do this flight in Australia, where he lives and where his family is. over the water in the bay by the opera house.
Sydney.
Pretty big deal. They stopped, walked off the harbor, and the whole thing. And this is a rocket, not the jet, because he got so tired of waiting for the jetpack to be ready.
Yeah.
And you're right. The day before, 2 days before, he crashed and burned himself bad, and got out of the hospital and did that flight that fell in the water. And but he did it. He did it. And that was, I think, the last rocket jet flight for him.
So this model that you have next to you is a jetpack, doesn't have rockets on it.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay.
Absolute jet engine, just like the 747.
Yeah.
It spins up. It spins at about 65,000 RPM compared to about 6,000 in the car.
And what changed that allowed you now to have a jet? That you said in the movie, at least, you said that it was finally the right size engine with the right power was built, because for some reason you couldn't. It had to be exactly the right size, right?
Exactly. It's a Goldilocks theory. You know, not too big, not too little. Along our way of finding all these model jets that were too little and didn't work, couldn't keep them all running at once, we actually went to the Czech Republic to a Russian factory that builds engines for MiGs, and they build a small engine, a little bit bigger than this, about a third bigger, that powered a generator for the MiGs to make electricity. So they made it into a pure jet. And we brought them here. It was too heavy to wear, so we built a little platform that you stand on, which defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Put on your back, walk around, fly.
Yeah. I like that.
Anyway, because we were desperate at that time. And it was heavy, so we had servos running the vanes, and I hate electronics. Too many electronics, too much to go wrong.
Yeah.
And if the servos aren't working right, I wouldn't fly it.
Yeah.
But he said, no, I got to fly it. Because he's been sponsoring this, the money buying. Another funny thing, he takes his A-Star helicopter and flies from France, where he was living then, to the Russian factory. And then he tells me, don't tell him we've got a lot of money because I want to keep the price. I say, wait. Why? You just flew here in your own helicopter and land on the front lawn. How can I say that?
Pay no attention to this helicopter. I have no money.
We stole it on the way. Anyway, he tried flying it and it went berserk. And he came down and he said, that's it for that. That was the only thing I've ever seen scared.
Really?
And that thing is still parked up on the roof. And we took the engines and sold them back to him because they needed them for some other clients. So that was fortunate.
Wow.
About then, we found this engine company in Europe, and they developed this just the right size engine, which is this. You can see the size. It's about 10-inch diameter and about a foot and a half long.
Yeah.
It only weighs about 20 pounds. And it puts out about 180 pounds thrust, so it all worked out just right. We bought a few of those, or David did. David was the money guy in the pilot, and we have this facility, we can build anything here. And I designed all the parts, pieces, and built it here.
So is this the big flight in New York City around the Statue of Liberty? That's when you finally found the right engine and the right combination of parts, and November 3rd, 2015.
Yes.
And he was able to fly high. I mean, how high do you think he got up in the air?
About 100, 150 feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I'll tell you, leading up to that, we did some tether flights between our buildings here. It's really hot. There's only about 30 or 40 feet between the buildings, and it's just, the engine's running, so it got very hot. And David found a place out in Moore Park between some hills, very private, farmer's thing, and we put tables up. So he learned on that to the point where he knew he could solo. And then a friend of mine's uncle has a lake up by Davis, California. We could use that. Reason over water is if something goes wrong, you fall, get wet. You know, of course, you could die going at 150 miles an hour from 300 feet off the street.
I'm sure there are a lot of things that could go wrong.
Yeah. So we went up there. He did a beautiful job of flying.
Yeah.
3 or 4 flights, and we thought we're ready.
Yeah.
So we were saying, what can we do that will be significant? So we said, fly around the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
And that's how those things get started. But in the end, we had to talk to the FAA, the Harbor Patrol.
Oh, I bet.
The mayor, you name it. They were all there, turned it into a big deal.
Yeah.
And that flight, you know, and we have friends that have helicopters and camera mounts, and a guy named Jesse shot the aerials there.
Mm-hmm.
And we rented a tugboat in the harbor, you know, for the harbor. Weirdly, a great company, really nice place. I went in, and when we were renting it that morning in their big office, and they had all these pictures on the wall, and there's a picture of their tugboat with Barbra Streisand on it from the movie Funny Girl, which I shot that picture.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, no, the aerial shot in Funny Girl. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
The perfect helicopter shot, you know, Barbara. Afterwards, I had lunch with Barbara and Howard Koch, and she stole my spaghetti. But that's a different story.
That's a good one, though. So now, tell me one thing. How long can you fly in these things now? Because originally, you know, you were saying it was just minutes or less than minutes.
The rocket was the longest rocket flight, about 30 seconds, where some of the guys
30 seconds.
Next to the fuel tank to carry a little more, but it gets so heavy you can't even walk, you know.
Yeah.
This one here will fly anywhere from 6 or 7 minutes up to 10 minutes, depending on pilot weight. You can get from the San Fernando Valley to the beach in that, because it'll go about 140, 150.
Whoa.
You would climb to probably where you.
Wait, did you say 140 miles per hour?
Sure.
It'll go that fast?
Yeah. Not right at first. You have to burn a little fuel off.
Yeah.
You know, so you have more thrust, because as you lean over at 45 degrees flying, you need twice as much power. So you're normally flying about like this, but it gets so uncomfortable at about 110, not like a motorcycle where you're crouched down and you go 200. You know.
Well, now that you say that, I want to ask you about that. Are you working on the flying motorcycle as well?
If it is, I discovered that there's no way to make money with these things.
Right.
So I said, David, good luck with the motorcycle. You know? But they're doing okay, I think.
Yeah, I have a video here of this. At least it's the, you know, idea of what they're going to do. This is like a CGI thing. But is it based on the same technology where you've got the jets now on the bottom of the motorcycle, you think?
Yeah. The jets are again facing downward, and you just shift your weight forward or tilt the engine slightly.
Wow.
Yeah, they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, it looks interesting.
One of the problems that I saw was anywhere from 10 or 12 feet up to 100 or so feet, you're dead if the engine goes out.
Yeah.
And to try to get a parachute system to work there would have to be a ballistic chute that would sense that one engine is starting to go. The pilot would never have a chance. It would have to sense that one engine is going to go, and it would have to fire the parachute, and it would have to fire it open.
Like an airbag.
And even this would be more expensive than the jetpack.
Really?
That's it. We had the guys from the Naval Weapons Lab come here. They wanted to help us, you know, out here for sale.
What do you think about the... Oh, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
It's such a big deal.
Yeah.
There's no way to make that guy safe.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is so far it has been a relentless pursuit with maybe not as much worry about safety. Because you guys are putting your own asses on the line, essentially, and seeing, you know, what you can do and really pushing the envelope. And so now, if you were going to mass produce this thing or get people, like, apparently you can take lessons, right? Is that true too? Like, you could
at this facility up, that I mentioned.
Yeah.
Between the tables.
Yeah.
They could train people, and I think he was charging 5,000 or 6,000 for
Yeah.
3 flights on the tether. And
Yeah.
even that, if somebody cranked the throttle on and went up above the tether, they could kill themselves. So they had to have a radio-controlled shut-off on
Yeah.
the engine. If the guy just even begins to get out of control, you just shut it off.
That makes sense.
And I think they've probably done maybe 10, 12 people. I lose track. There's a way of making money.
What do you think about this guy, Richard Browning? You know that guy?
Yeah.
So Richard Browning, I'm just going to show a little bit here. He has that company called Gravity, and he's, taking this, he did similar to what you were doing, standing on the shoulders of greatness, being you. He started messing around with this stuff too on his own. And again, very much like you and very much like David Maimon, the guy is relentlessly pursuing this thing that who knows if it has any monetary real value, or if it's, if you can market this kind of thing, or if people can actually do this, on a day-to-day basis, or what. What do you think about this?
I love that guy. I think he's amazing,
Yeah.
Fortunately, we were first. David kept saying, we're not going to be first. We're not going to be first.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know of anybody that could possibly be. And we were first by a year or two from a guy named Frankie. This guy is super strong. I've seen pictures of him doing a flag. You know what a flag
he
is?
does a flag. He was doing those first, and then was like, well, maybe I could, fly in a jetpack.
2 engines on each arm and an engine in the back, and he's literally, he
Yeah,
doesn't have a throttle.
he's like
And he
muscling it.
aims the engines out, they're wide open.
Yeah.
Bring them in, and they start to fly. You go bring them out, they're shooting out there, so he'll come down. So he's amazing, strong guy, and took him a long time, but he's actually flying around like a jetpack.
Did you hear that some multimillionaire bought one from him for $500,000, and then they have a video of him coming there, and he tries to do it because they're like, okay, we're going to train you how to do it, and the guy cannot do it. I mean, it's so hard. He can maybe get a little bit off the ground, but this guy is like trained, and he's got a couple other people that also do it, but it takes a lot of strength, a lot of physical stamina, I guess.
Also a lot of training as far as just flying it, but you're right, there you need a lot of strength. The jetpack, you just have to be strong enough to stand with it,
Yeah.
It weighs about 75 pounds, and we're carrying about 11 gallons at the max on this tank. Let me spin this thing around. Can you see it here?
Yeah, oh, definitely.
So first of all, we built a mold to make a carbon fiber vest. Actually, this mold I built back in the 70s to build a thing for the buffalo. We still use the same one.
Wow.
It's the best of all.
That's great. Yeah.
This carbon fiber thing. Then hook to it right here behind your neck, like right here. It's like somebody picking you up at the back of your neck to take you.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's hooked to the vest. And then there's this fuel tank, which is really nice. Molded fuel tank. It also has a very expensive glider inside, like a Formula One car. So if it crashed and split this, it won't split the fuel.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Electronics and the battery that started is here. This part here, we did all the machining here in our shop. I don't know if you can see it, but now the engines are straight down. So that would be going straight up and down.
Yeah.
It makes a turn left and right by wiggling this nozzle. You can see it. This would be flying sideways. Like
That is so cool looking.
That's forward. This is stopping quick.
Yeah.
This is this little here, all fly by wire. And it's got all these little controls and lights that you can't see here to warn you if anything's going wrong.
I would think that there would be people that want to buy that thing. Does anybody ever offer you, or?
That was the whole point. I thought, I mean, this was all for fun, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, clearly you're somebody that got Spark when you were 9 years old, and you have been following that ever since. And a lot of us, do that. A lot of us in our lives, we get like something in our head, and it's not about the money at all. It's about like, I'm going to make this thing real. And for what you have done too, is also realize a dream for all of us, because when we saw that thing fly in 1984, and before that, when we saw the Rocketeer or Buck Rogers, we all thought, hey, this is a dream for us. But the spark was not great enough for us to try and pursue it. But you did. And thank you. I commend you for doing that. And it's an incredible lifetime accomplishment. We don't know what's going to happen with it. Just like when computers came out, we didn't really know where it was going to go from there. People were like, well, you can type on it, you can do this. And then it just exploded. And I imagine that's what's going on with this. You have been the founder of something that is going to become ubiquitous somewhere in the world. We just don't know what it is yet. We don't know.
Who knows? The goal is to be able to pick up, like in the serials, King of the Rocket Men, you pull it out of the trunk of your car, put it on, twist the knob, away you go.
Yeah.
Flies all day.
It's great too, because when someone imagines something, a science fiction writer imagines something, and then someone puts it into the world, that is an incredible feat. That is almost like magic, It's almost like, because we have these ideas, and that's a lot of times science fiction propels our technology. Someone comes up with, hey, this is an idea, I don't know how it works, and then someone like you comes along and actually makes it work. So that's phenomenal. Another thing that I wanted to say is, do you have an Academy Award?
Yes, I have 3.
You have three Academy Awards.
Developing. Yeah.
Wow, and that's for your camera technology.
Yeah, for the two for the helicopter camera mount and one for a gyro-stabilized boat platform to hold the cameras steady on boats. And it was used in like the movie Jaws, that kind of thing, where you're out on the water. It's really hard to shoot out on the water.
What's also great about you is that not only did you take somebody's imagination and turn it into a reality, you also are creating means for other people to show their imagination, and then someone else will create that into reality. You know what I mean? You're enabling storytellers to tell stories, which is just a whole nother level of what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's
Did you
great.
ever hear the wet bike?
The wet bike, yes. I wanted to have it's the thing that goes on the water, right? But it's a motorcycle.
I was in a lake, and my friends were lying on the dock steaming. I was out riding my dirt bike, and I thought I could just ride across the water. It wouldn't make fun. So I sketched the thing on a napkin. It took 2 years to develop the water motorcycle. I licensed it to Arctic Enterprises and people of Baltimore, Minnesota. They've made 50,000.
It was in a bunch of movies. I went to Sardinia and trained Roger Moore, who rode a wet bike in The Spy Who Loved Me.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are still playing with those wet bikes. So it's like you say, if you can come up with something. So that worked.
That works.
Jetpack, when David said, let's sell these and make money. And I thought, no, they're going to die if they. So, anyway, he's still trying. I hope the motorcycle thing works good.
The only thing I ever did is I took a dirt bike and I rode it into a pool one time. And I realized at that moment that when the bike hits the pool, it stops and you don't. And I just did a face plant right into the bike before I actually hit the water. And that was enough for me. But guys like you just keep going. You're like, oh, okay, how can I fix that?
Well, I always felt you could just do anything. It's just a matter of time and, hopefully you don't run out of either one.
Yeah, exactly. Time is the most valuable thing, I think. Thank you so much, Nelson Tyler, for being on the show. This has been a real treat. The way it started for me was I was talking to somebody 2 weeks ago, and they were, I wanted to ask you about this. It was doing an interview on my show just like this, and he said, there are jetpacks. Somebody spotted one near LA Airport. Have you heard this story? Yes, so apparently near LAX at 3,000 feet, this plane was flying and somebody flew by in a jetpack, and there's actually, I'll play it here, I don't know if you can hear it, but there's audio of the pilots.
Western 962, and we just saw the guy pass by us jetpack. JetBlue 23, use caution. Person in a jetpack reported 300 yards south of the LA final at about 3,000 feet, 10-mile final.
What do you think that was? Do you think that there was somebody in a jetpack out by LAX at 3,000 feet?
Yeah. Now, I don't know what that is. I'd love to talk to the pilots to see what, to try to quiz them, you know.
Yeah, what did he actually see?
Yeah, what they really see. I thought sure the FAA would be calling me, you know, and I know the FAA guys, of course, because the stuff we build for camera mounts and SWAT teams is all FAA approved. You know?
Yeah.
Nobody's called. That afternoon, 3 different news people showed up at our gate out there with their truck. And I wouldn't go out. I didn't want to get involved with this, you know. After getting David's phone number, you know, and I think David sent him some pictures of him flying some stuff. Can't imagine. This machine would do it, of course.
Yeah.
But it's here.
Yeah.
David's locked down in Australia.
Yeah.
We didn't do it. You know, I would be too chicken to do that.
That's crazy. Yeah. You know, so I thought, yeah, it's either you guys or it's Richard Browning or, you know, I don't know. There's only so many people that can do that out here. But it's a great story, though, and it led me to you. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you, Nelson Tyler, for being on the show. You're our second Academy Award winner who has been on the show, so that we're honored to have you on, and we are just blown away by the work that you've done in your life, and we thank you for bringing the jetpack into reality.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, see you soon. That was incredible. I feel like I should have probably saluted at the end there, but you know, what can you do? I wasn't in the military. I wasn't trained enough. Anyway, that was incredible. Like I was saying, it's a lesson in somebody who just really puts their ass on the line, sees what they want to do, relentlessly pursues it over decades and decades. Long live Nelson Tyler, as Kamala says. Nice wrap up. Thank you. Sometimes with the interviews, that's the hard part, the wrap up. I hope that everybody out there has enjoyed themselves. And the other thing is, there's a dance break at the end of this thing. For those of you who maybe have joined the show for the first time, at the end, we play somebody covering a song that we really enjoy. And this is no exception, of course. There's a school out there of singing called the Ken Tamplin Academy. And this is one of his prize students, I think, because she's got a voice like you wouldn't believe. And we're going to listen to it right now. Only a little bit of it, because I just want you guys to go. And I want y'all to go to his YouTube channel or go to his website. But here you go. Dance away. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. It was a real treat. It was great to have Nelson Tyler on the show, so thank you to him. Thank you to everybody this week. Jason Stewart, Bennett Jones. Next week we're going to have more folks on here. I'm working on some really good ones, so I hope you'll join us next week. This girl rocks. Please share. I hope you'll find her on YouTube. This is, of course, Audio Slave. Sure you can't hear me, and I hope you can. I love this song. See you next week on Lunch Therapy.